I'm going to be kind of going over a new framework that I developed, and I call it the C3 Property Profiler because I think there is kind of a gap in especially newer investors wanting to get started in real estate and specifically multifamily, and just looking at any property that comes across them, like that they find listed online or that a broker tells them about, and they don't actually have criteria to hone in what they're looking for. Let me tell you, if you have like a strict criteria built out and you know why, then it's going to be much quicker for you to filter through and dismiss property leads that don't fit what you ultimately want to achieve as you are in building your portfolio or in your investment career. I know it's super easy to want to basically just get something. You just want to close that first deal and really like put that stamp. Yeah, I'm an investor. I got another deal closed, et cetera, et cetera. But it's, trust me, better for you in the long haul to not take some risks with certain kinds of properties, or at least if you are going to take certain risk with properties, knowing exactly what those risks are and what you should expect, or can expect coming up in the process of owning and operating and managing that property, and what potential maintenance and issues and other things, kind of tenant base you're going to attract, all of that. All of that is very important when you are deciding what kind of property to look into. So first we were talking about market. That's the first half of determining your buy box. But the second half is really knowing like these aspects and characteristics of the property that you want to look at, and not just what the numbers look like. Because there are a lot of properties and they'll look like they're gonna, on paper, they're gonna cash flow well. But if you are not considering some of the intangibles or other things, or non-numerical issues, then you are probably gonna set yourself up for some disappointment or shocks when you actually come across those and you weren't expecting or even kind of prepared to potentially expect those things. So, hello, my name, if you're here, you know who I am. If not, welcome and hi. My name is Nicole Pendergrass, and I'm really excited to present this framework that I've created, and it's called the C3 Property Profile, as I mentioned before. It's really for finding properties with intention. So you're not wasting your time considering properties that really don't fit, what your goals are, and you can filter through properties quickly so you can find the kind that makes the most sense for your lifestyle, your goals, and your priorities. Okay. So let's think about this for a moment. You're probably here, or you're probably watching this live or training, or even if you're watching it in the future, because you really want to get started investing. But when you look at potential properties, you're mainly looking at the numbers. And that's really what's been drilled into your head. You start looking at a bunch of listings, even torn properties, but the cash flow numbers, if they make sense, then you start digging deeper and trying to look into it more. But there's always that kind of what if question in the back of your head. Like there's a nagging feeling that you're missing something that you really can't put your finger on. Then conveniently, I'll say something, happens to come up that throws the whole deal out of whack and makes it fall apart. And you kind of moan to your friends or family or colleagues about like what happened and why it didn't work and why real estate's so hard, et cetera, et cetera. But like really the truth was, you're subconsciously giving yourself an out because you really weren't sure. And you basically got in your own way because let's be honest, if you really think about it, you know that that's has to be right, right? Like you don't realize in the moment that you're doing it and you're self-sabotaging. But if you look in retrospect, It's because you really weren't sure and you don't have a criteria for the kinds of properties you should look for and why. So going through this framework will give you more confidence in your property selection process. So if you've tried other different approaches like relying on general market research or checking off like some basic criteria, even talking with agents who don't really understand your full goals without a clear buy box, it's really going to be easy to end up like taking on a property that is requiring more than what you're comfortable with or has characteristics that don't really align with what your strategy is or your know-how, your preferences. So today we're going to fix that by dialing in on exactly what you should look for and why. And I'm not going to tell you what you should look for. I'm going to outline the criteria and you go through and you know your lifestyle, your goals and resources, and you pick what makes sense for you as an investor. So anyway, let's see. There's nobody on there. So anyway, imagine that this happens after we go through this whole process and I explain what you should consider when you're looking for a property. Then just think about like instead of sifting through endless listings or wasting time touring properties that you're never going to close, right? Each property that you actually find meets specific attributes that align with your vision. And you're not really only identifying properties and potential issues up front, but you're also now able to negotiate with confidence because you know that if you pick something like this, there's potentially this issue associated with that. And now you can go to the negotiating table and to the seller with a little bit more oomph behind you and what you're talking and knowing what you're talking about, right? So who's ready to really get started and find your ideal property with confidence? Okay, so let's go. C3 property profile is for classification, characteristics, and condition. Those are the 3 C's that you need to really work through. So the first step is determining the classification, and that's which one aligns best with your investment strategy. So it means if you're looking to properties that are class A, B, C, or D to see how that fits in your overall picture, what your investing life is going to look like, right? In my other training, like I said, I went over the how to select the right market. And you can select A, B, C, and D areas in your market, but that's completely different. And you have to distinguish that from A, B, C, or D properties. So you can have a B property in an A area, which would not be a bad combination at all. Or you could have a B property in a C area, which would give you a little bit more issues, right? But class, in this case for the properties, is really heavily reliant on the age of the property and the kind of amenities and things that it does have, right? So class A is high-end properties, newer builds, recently renovated, located in desirable areas with top amenities. They attract high-income tenants and really have minimal maintenance needs. And so they're lower risk, but also sometimes have a lower return because they tend to be a higher cost. Class B are well-maintained middle-income properties around 10 to 20, maybe even sometimes 30 years old, and they attract stable middle-income type of tenants. They offer good cash flow and have sometimes they have some moderate amenities, sometimes they not so much, but they're kind of in that middle road. So it makes them like a low to moderate risk when it comes to investing. Class C are older properties over 20 years old with more deferred maintenance and working class tenants like blue collar. And they have actually a much higher cash flow potential, but also higher turnover and higher maintenance costs. So it's a moderate to high risk kind of scenario. And here's where you really, even class B, but really class C as well, you need to really watch out for the CapEx tsunami. And the CapEx tsunami, I will say, one of my unofficial mentors, Chris Jackson, I think coined that, or actually was it Bill? Bill might have coined that. There is a couple of my mentors have coined that term, but I've taken it as well because it's very true. CapEx tsunami refers to CapEx is the larger repairs and property systems like your HVAC, your roof, your window, like electrical systems, plumbing, all those kind of things, like the big ticket items. So CapEx tsunami refers to like a major repair or replacement cost that hit as a property ages. So the tsunami is because there's a lot of aging properties across different markets in the country because new builds has slowed down over the past decade, right? That's why we're so underbuilt right now. So in any case, though, a lot of the properties that are available are a little bit older, and so they're starting to age out, and so you'll get major repair replacement costs. So um, what am I? So basically, the wave of expenses may include some like really large ticket items, like I said, roof replacement, plumbing, electrical, all those kind of things. But when owners haven't kept up with maintenance or reinvested capital into the property, those issues and those repairs can be a major financial burden to the current owner. And then potentially that's why you would sell at a discount to a new owner or a buyer who's coming up and wants to own the property. But then that buyer needs to make sure that they have basically like enough capital reserve to handle all the expenses and issues that are coming up, but they're getting a discount from that on the front end. So you don't want to be the buyer who has the property where you haven't reinvested into capital expenditures over your ownership period, because then you're going to end up, coming into an issue. Now, Class C, these are properties really in lower income, high crime areas, and with a substantial deferred maintenance. And they have a high tenant turnover, frequent repairs, and a really high risk. They can offer high returns if you know what you're doing, or if you're really specific and honed in on your strategy, if you have the stuff to the team to be able to handle kind of like the CapEx tsunami stuff or other deferred maintenance issues. Maybe you're going to gut everything to the studs and rebuild the whole building. You have property maintenance or management that's going to come in and they really are able to handle the tenant base there. Or maybe like there's a path of progress where something in that area is coming and they're going to be building up in that area. And so you're getting in ahead of the curve. So those will be issues and those will be reasons that you would want to look at a Class D property. But I think that Class D really should be not in the pickings for most investors, especially newer investors, right? But so ultimately, if you pick like a specific class that helps you align with your property and investment goals, like you're going to be off to the races and have a better start with your career. So, for example, if you're after steady cash flow and fewer maintenance surprises, Class B is probably going to be a good pick for you. But if you want value add potential and are okay with a little bit more hands-on work, then Class C might be a better fit. If you have excess capital and you want to preserve that capital and you really don't want any maintenance at all, you don't even want to deal with it, then Class A might be better. So there's exceptions to every rule. This is not across the board, but for the most part, those are how you can align what you want and what you're comfortable with the type of property that you go after, right? It's all about like who you are as a person and what you're willing to negotiate as far as what you want to put into the property. So if you don't have a clear class in mind, you're going to end up with a property that requires too many unplanned maintenance issues and doesn't provide the returns that you're really looking for. So trust me, a big repair maintenance or CapEx issue can really eat into years and years of cash flow. You could have been cash flowing well for 3 years and have a big maintenance surprise, and that wipes out all that cash flow. Now, so what was the point, right? So right now, what you want to do is decide from Class A, B, C, and D, and what you know about yourself personally, which classification aligns best with you for your financial goals, your resources, and your maintenance preferences. So I'll say, for example, I don't really like a lot of heavy rehab, right? I definitely team up to handle those kind of things, and I have handled those in some of my properties. But overall, I still love Class C and B, but I love equity potential. So value add play is in my boathouse right now because I want to build equity. I want to force the appreciation by turning the property, whether that's an operational turn or whether that's a rehab and maintenance kind of turn. But I want to increase the value of the property. With commercial multifamily, you increase the value by increasing the cash flow and decreasing the expenses. And that's where you get your value add kind of play. And that's what I look for because I like to build equity so that I can now pull that equity, have it pull enough where that the building is still covering the new debt service. When you pull the equity out, is getting a new loan. But then now I can use that equity as a down payment on my next property. And I've done that a few times. So value add play for me right now is a better bet for me to be able to build my portfolio. So that's why I'm willing to deal with Class B and Class C value add plays, right? At this point, I am kind of transitioning where I want to prefer more on Class B, but if a good Class C opportunity comes up, I would not dismiss that. Okay. But that's also, I have a couple years of experience already in the industry. If you're new, then I think you should tiptoe in and maybe not take on a larger project unless you have the right partnerships in line. Okay. Anyway, let me see. Okay. Step 2 is characteristics. So the next step that you need to define is what characteristics you want in the property. This includes like the unit count, the layout, amenities, other things like even like the how the property is structured. So those factors kind of help you watch your property and match what your property has to the tenant demand in the area and make sure that you align it like to your operational style. So if you think about some other kind of characteristics, you could say like bedroom count, dog parks, playgrounds, in-unit washers and dryers, even like the facade, if it's going to be brick, vinyl panels, wood, stucco, right? Or the type of roof that it has. Is it pitched or is it flat? Because all of those issues will determine the type of maintenance that is required for that property, right? If you're looking at the external like facade and roofing issues, not issues, but the structure. So knowing this as well is actually going to help you filter out properties that don't match what you're looking for. Again, it all goes back down to you personally and what you like and what you are trying to achieve with your building your portfolio and in your investment career. So knowing yourself is key in this entire process to pick the property that fits and the market that fits so that you're not just looking at every single property and you can actually be more effective in your property search. So as an example, like if you don't want to allow pets in your building because you think that it's going to cause too much capital when you have to turn units, right? Like if you have like urine smells or whatever from dogs or whatever the case is, or you don't want the liability of a dog potentially biting another tenant or whatever it could be. Maybe you just don't want pets at your building. But then why would you look at a property that has a dog park? But dog parks are a hot amenity, and that can help you increase your rents and your revenue. Actually, allowing pets helps you increase your revenue. But if that's not something you want, then that's not the kind of property that you will look at. Or let's say you prefer a mix of like 2 and 3 bedroom units so you can attract families. So that means if you know that and you want to have like a playground on your property and you want families, you want 2 and 3 bedroom units, then you can skip looking at properties that only have 1 bedroom units or studios, right? So that's just kind of, it's super simple, but sometimes if someone doesn't say it to you, you don't even think about why you should be looking at certain property types and why you should rule out others, right? The thing with bedroom count, though, is if you think about larger bedroom counts, they're going to attract families that have children, and children are going to have more maintenance and turn costs than units without children. But the other thing is those tenants tend to stay longer because you have families and it's much harder to move and uproot a whole family. So you're gonna have less turnover costs. And turnover cost is also a big thing. Like that's one of the biggest expenses for a landlord. If you have 1 and 2 bedroom units that are professionals or singles, they may have higher turnover, but then they also might have lower maintenance. like in turnover costs, right? But the tenants may leave more frequently. So it's a balancing act and trying to find that middle ground. But at the same time, you may not be able to. Like it just depends on, let's say if you have a building that's close to downtown, is and all the restaurants and eateries and let's say other amenities and kind of entertainment is in the area, then maybe, and if there's good jobs down there, maybe if you have 1 or 2 bedroom units, those are professionals who are going to, not 1 or 2, studio and 1 bedroom units. Those are professionals that are going to stay because they like to be downtown and where things are happening, but the jobs are there and the jobs are stable, right? And so maybe that's just easy access to them to like walk to work or bike to work or whatever the case is. So maybe you have less maintenance turn costs, but then you have also less like turnover of tenants. So, but that's like a very nuanced niche that you need to pay attention to how these things all work together. If you don't look at the characteristics that you have in your property, you're going to risk like getting properties that don't attract the kind of tenants that you want to serve, or that can impact the occupancy and the cash flow ultimately that you get from the property. So now that we've covered kind of characteristics and why you should do certain things or look at certain characteristics for your building, I want you to sit down, think about the kind of examples that I've given, think about other characteristics that you've seen on listings. Another task that you can do, go to apartments.com or look at Zillow or look at any other apartments for rent and start scrolling through and seeing the types of amenities that properties have and looking at the characteristics of the building, like what's the facade and what's the roof look like, but also the things that are going to attract tenants, and then see like what's the bedroom count of the building, right? And kind of look at that and see what's typical in the area that you're going to be looking at. And now you can sit down and you can decide, oh, maybe you saw something that you hadn't thought about before, right? And you think it's a great amenity to have. You would like to have it if you were renting. So you think, you would like to offer that to your tenants. So in any case, now I want you this step, sit down, think about the characteristics that you want to, oh, let me turn that back on. Think about the characteristics that you want to offer in your building. Okay, so that's step 2. So step 1, we talked about the class. You already wrote down the type of class based on your personality and what you want to deal with and not deal with. And now is the characteristics also based on your personality, the tenant base you want, the maintenance you want, those kind of things that you want to deal with. Okay. All right. So now step 3 is the condition. This is going to be the biggest area where your maintenance concerns and maintenance issues can come up, thinking about the condition of the property, right? This is kind of also aligned with the class, because the newer the building, the less some of these conditions will be apparent, at least at the beginning of your ownership period. If you're going with class B or C, especially D, then some of these conditions, those are things you're definitely going to want to look out for when you are inspecting the property and when you're going to look at it. You want to make sure that we'll go over it. We'll go over it. But you want to make sure that as you're researching properties, and especially when you go to do a physical inspection, like your first viewing or walkthrough of a property, that you're looking out for some of these things. So if you decide to pursue it, that one, you can negotiate that with the owner if there's an issue or something that you see that could be a potential issue, or 2, you decide to just put aside extra capital reserves to be able to handle that whenever an issue, according to whatever the plumbing, electrical, or whatever comes about. Now you can be capitalized and have the reserves to be able to handle it. Okay. So condition is talking about like the major systems, like your HVAC, your plumbing, the roof. By setting a criteria for certain conditions, you really can identify properties that either meet your standards or allow, like I said, room for negotiation if they fall short. So I would highly suggest, actually, once you get in contract, to get like a structural engineer to examine the building along with other professionals like HVAC, electrical, plumbing, all that stuff. So if you plan to build up your team and your acquisitions in the area and be very active, then at some point you can build this team and start having them come out at the initial onset of you going to view the property the first time instead of waiting until you get in contract to view the property, right? So that's going to be, not everybody's going to go and do that if they don't know that they're going to have the contract. But if this is a team that you work with all the time, then they know that you've built that relationship and they are going to be working with you in the future. So you could potentially get them to come out before you even waste your time, not waste your time, but before you even spend time getting down with the numbers to analyze and actually put in an offer on the property. So when you are evaluating a property for purchase, you want to consider a few big items. So first, we're going to talk about the roof condition. So in the roof, when you're checking that, check for leaks, ask about the age and the material to anticipate like what your replacement costs are going to be. What I'm saying, what I do have an experience with this. So one of my properties, we purchased and we did do a roof inspection. This story is just telling you that you can't prevent everything. You can do the best job that you can potentially do. You can look out for all the things that you can see, but some things are going to slip through the cracks, right? And you can't, if you're in real estate, you gotta end up having thick skin and know how to circumvent and get around certain things, or know how to handle it when you do have an issue. Because if you're in real estate long enough, you will have an issue, right? So my building in Pennsylvania, it's a 5-unit building. Actually, I'm still going through this right now. The roof collapsed in one of the units. Luckily, nobody was hurt. But when the city came to inspect, they condemned the unit. The tenant was near the end of his lease, and like he had like a month left, so we let him out so he could move. And what happened is, as they were inspecting, they found out the previous contractors, like years before we had even purchased the building, had done like a shortcut in a repair, and they used a beam that was too small and wasn't to code. Um, and now it held up temporarily, and temporarily being years, but now when it gave out, it was on our watch, right? And we did do a full inspection when we purchased the property. So that was not something that was seen, that was, internal, but now we have to deal with it. And because it's a structural issue, our insurance does not cover it, right? So I just say that to make sure that you have, even if you have a structural engineer go out when you are under contract, sometimes there's going to be some things that they don't see, but they have an eye to see like little tilts in, the flooring, or a slant in the roof, or other things that they can potentially look at that will give them the hint, because of their experience and knowledge, to say, okay, you know what? That looks a little bit funny to me. I think we should investigate that further, or maybe I need to go up to the roof and see this, or just to ask some more questions and do some more digging. Something that your eye may not catch, they can catch and kind of prompt you to do a little bit more digging into that particular issue. So now we're still in the issue, in the process of our structural engineer and everyone else. Well, structural engineer and the contractors went out, and we are now waiting for our final bid on the final bid on all the costs for this repair. And of course, because the city had to come out and they condemned that unit, they decided to look around the rest of the building and see other things that they wanted to get repaired. So we have a list coming, and I'm just crossing my fingers and how we are going to get through this and just build it up. And luckily, we have a lot of equity in the property. It's a great property in a great city, but this is just one issue that we have to be able to handle and see what the cost is going to be, so that we can get this rectified and get a new tenant in there, right? So that's just a personal story to let you know that even sometimes when you do check all the boxes, you just want to, I want to impress upon you just to be as nitpicky, that's the word, as possible, because you want to really make sure that you are looking at every aspect of the property, or that if something is going to potentially fail or need big repairs coming up soon, that you are prepared for that mentally, right? So the next other thing besides roof is foundation and structural integrity, like looking for cracks or uneven floors. So if there's some issues there, you definitely want to get that checked out. Plumbing and electrical systems, older systems like galvanized pipes or outdated wiring often are going to need costly upgrades. Like look for in plumbing, look for PEX plumbing, which is widely considered like a cost-effective and durable choice for plumbing. And check out electrical panels. Some older electrical panels or certain brands are known for failures and for having issues. So I think Federal Pacific is one, Zinsco, and Challenger. Like those are some that are known to have issues. So if you see those brand names of panels when you're doing a walkthrough of a building, or you can ask the owner or the broker what kind of electrical panels they have. So, you know, if they have those, then that's already a potential extra cost. Or you might want to just go in with the thought to already just renovate that and completely replace those from the very beginning. So you don't even have to deal with the potential issue down the road, right? HVAC systems, those are every like 10 to 20 years, those potentially need to be changed. So you need to assess the age, the functionality, and repairs and replacements can be costly, especially depending on how many units you have and how many or what size HVAC system you need to replace, right? Windows and installations, another big thing to look at. So if you have poor insulation and you have old windows, that is going to really increase the utility costs and the impact of your tenant satisfaction. So that's something that if people are moving out because they're always cold and they don't have insulation, windows are letting in cold air or whatever, then that's a problem that you have to fix because it's affecting your tenants, but you're not going to get that should just be automatically across the board that should work. And you're not going to get like a rent increase for fixing windows because the windows should already be quality, right? And already have insulation there. So, in any case, you know why property condition like is an important thing to look at. So those are just some things that like some of the major systems that you should look at and some of the like um things to look for. And even if you are not a professional contractor or anything else, you need to make sure at least you come with the mindset to keep your eyes open for those kind of things. Take a lot of pictures or videos. And then if someone can't come with you to your first viewing, then show them it and see like, hey, does this look like there could potentially be issues? If I go back, what else should I look for? Are you able to come with me to another viewing of the property? You know what I mean? Like, so that way you can put in a correct offer from the beginning and you can already account for repair costs and things that are going to need to be replaced very quickly. So if you skip this step, you don't want to skip the step because you're going to basically be facing costly repairs. And if you're not well capitalized to be able to handle them, then you're just going to have an issue. And you don't want to be one of those owners who has to sell at a discount because they can't handle the repair costs for big CapEx expenditures. So you want to make sure you know what that's going to look like, or you have a good idea. If no one knows for sure, you don't know 100%, but you want a good idea before you get into a property. So in any case, set your condition standards. So now we've talked about the class, the characteristics, and the condition. So now you've already decided what class you want. You've decided the condition of the property that you want and they're comfortable with. Now think about the you thought about the characteristics that you are comfortable with or that you want, the tenant type that you want to attract, right? So now you want to think about the condition that you're comfortable with and what is your complete like non-negotiables for system upgrades. For, you know, if you see something, you're just, nope, that's not the building for me. I'm not comfortable dealing with the potential issues that that's going to cause. For me to replace these systems is going to cost too much. It's not going to make sense with the finances of the building. So make sure you know what that is so you know when to walk away, because it's, the deal you didn't do is better than the deal you did. Is that the saying? It's a saying like that. Like avoiding is getting a good deal is not as good as getting a bad deal. That's definitely not it. That is definitely not it. Y'all know, some of y'all know what I'm talking about. A bad deal, walking away from a bad deal is the best decision you can ever make. at the end of the day. Sometimes you won't know it's a bad deal until you get into it, but at the end of the day, even if you have an inclination that something's off or that is too much of a rehab or a capex for you to handle or for the network that you already have to handle, then walk away. There's plenty of deals out there. You will find a deal. Don't be so thirsty to get one done that you're going to step into a bad deal. Okay. So now this is the second half of the framework for determining your buy box. Like I said before, the first half was determining the correct market. And if you're interested in that, that's called the L3 market mapping framework that I created. You know what? You can put a message in the chat for L3 market, and I will send you the recording and the bonus guide for the L3 market mapping framework if you want to see how to discover what market and how to easily pick a market without going through a ton of market research that causes a lot of overwhelm. So this is an easier framework for you to go ahead and get started, because that's the whole thing, is we want you to get started in investing, right? So if you want that, put L3 market in the chats. If you want the bonus for this guy, for the C3 property profiler, then put bonus in the chat, and I will send you over the bonus for this guy, the framework that will help you walk through. It'll basically lay out what I've discussed and help you walk through all the steps of selecting the type of property that you want to look for, so that when you start your search, you can be focused and not all over the place. Okay. Also, final thing, I have a free Facebook group called the Microfamily Initiative. This is where I'm putting all of these trainings and bonus guides and anything that you want to need. And we're having discussions inside there. If you're interested in getting more help with your journey, talking to other like-minded individuals, people who are also interested in small multifamily. So that's microfamily is basically my definition for anything like 3 to 10 units. So it's small enough for you to go ahead and get started and be comfortable with. It's not you biting off more than you chew. I know the whole elephant thing. You eat an elephant one bite at a time, blah, blah, blah. I know, I get it. But sometimes thinking about a 100 unit building on your first acquisition, or even a couple of acquisitions, can be overwhelming. And I think getting into multifamily, starting with some smaller 3 to 10 unit buildings or microfamily, is much easier to kind of chew on, but it's a step above just building a single family portfolio. So in any case, if you're interested in connecting with other people who are interested in small multifamily, you want to network, you want to learn more, I put a lot of information in there. Message me, put in the chat microfamily in the chat, and I will send you the link to the group so you can hop on in and join us. So in any case, thank you for joining me on this training today. I'm excited to see how these insights for property selection help you in kind of rounding out your buy box and actually getting your criteria, honed in and written down and being very specific, so that as you go out there and you start networking with people, you can tell people, hey, I'm looking for a brick building, 7 units, two beds, 2 or 3 beds in this market, or whatever the case is, like with a pitched roof or whatever your criteria is, 1980 and newer, you know what I mean? Like, you can sit down and write a whole list of what your criteria are, and this is your ideal property. Doesn't mean you won't ever not look at something that's in that buy box, but you're going to look at things that are as close to that buy box as you can get. And if there's a little outlier, then you can determine whether it's worth the risk of taking that step for that property. And you have to look at the numbers and if the growth potential and equity potential of the property is worth it, if there's a value add play, and however your strategy for growing your portfolio, right? So in any case, thank you again. Like I said, if you want the L3 market mapping, put market mapping L3 market in the chat. If you want the bonus for this one, you can put C3 in the chat, C3 property profiler, but that's a lot. So just put C3 property in the chat. If you also want to join the Microfamily Initiative Facebook group, put Microfamily in the chat. So in any case, I hope to see you on the inside of the group, or I hope to go ahead and be able to send you these other trainings or resources to help you in your journey. And let me know if there's anything else that I can help you with. You want to have a discussion, let me know. You can message me, you put that in the chat. I just want to help more of us be able to buy properties and build wealth so we can live the lives that we were destined to live. Okay. I've experienced a lot of, what do I say? Like growth in my journey in multifamily, financial and personal and business and all of that. And I want to share what I have learned and help other people get unstuck and get out of their own way. So in any case, I will see you next time. Thank you.